Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here is your detailed forecast update for January 2nd, 2025. It feels really weird saying that. A lot to get through in today's forecast update, so if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Over in the southeast of Queensland, we've got showers and thunderstorms streaming through there. Central Queensland also expecting an outbreak of showers and storms throughout the course of this week, and some heavy to locally intense rainfall is also expected up in Queensland's far north. A week of thunderstorms and potentially severe ones across New South Wales, a heatwave across interior parts of Australia, and a wild card in terms of how much rainfall is expected across the nation's south. We've also got two tropical lows offshore from Western Australia, so we're fully booked, so let's get stuck straight into things. Let's start off with the southeast of Queensland. There is a couple of showers streaming through there, and some rainfall accumulations have been hefty over the last couple of hours. In fact, some locations have been picking up to 70 or 80 millimetres, especially some of the personal weather stations around Point Lookout, and then north of Brisbane into Redcliffe up to about Maroochydore. There have been some heavier showers streaming through those areas throughout the last couple of hours. Thankfully, it looks like the rainfall is just beginning to ease off in those locations right now. It looks like the rainfall will clear out over the course of today. There are still some isolated heavy showers offshore. We called this with yesterday's forecast update. We knew that there was going to be a bit of heavy rainfall lingering around, and unfortunately this rainfall is also quite slow moving, so those accumulations are going to be, like I said, quite hefty across some of these locations. The rainfall, as you can see on the forecast model, slowly trickling down as the hours tick by throughout the course of today. We're likely to see these showers just continue streaming ashore though, and heading up further north throughout the course of today as well. I think the forecast is maybe a little bit incorrect, especially from the thunderstorm perspective into the central areas of Queensland. I mean, you can see it here on the radar imagery. It's calling for some pretty nasty thunderstorms around the Dingo and Ogmore area right now, but you can see on the satellite imagery there's absolutely nothing to speak about there, so I think we might just discard this kind of thunderstorm forecast, at least temporarily, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. But what we're likely to see here is these showers pick up throughout the course of today for locations between Bundaberg up to Ogmore, so including Rockhampton, Gladstone and Agnes Water. We're likely to see some light to moderate showers streaming ashore there. In fact, the showers could actually get a little bit heavy at times for some of these locations, and as such some decent rainfall accumulations are possible here and there, somewhere between the ballpark of 30 to 50 millimetres, because this rainfall doesn't let up until at least tonight. In fact, even in towards tomorrow morning, there's still some showers streaming through ashore here, and even in towards the Rockhampton and Yeppoon area, it takes until about Saturday morning for these showers to fully clear out. So a couple of days of showers. They will of course be at their heaviest this afternoon and into this evening before easing off temporarily tonight, and then picking up again earlier on Friday morning and lasting throughout Friday evening. Again, nothing crazy expected tomorrow, maybe 10 millimetres tops for some of the coastal locations, and hardly anything as you get further inland. But nonetheless, some good rainfall is possible, and certainly some much needed rainfall as well around Gladstone and Agnes Water. They're still certainly struggling for a little bit of water at this time. But yeah, these thunderstorms here, if we flick it over to the convective forecast models, this is an interesting aspect here that has been popped up on the convective forecast models, and certainly something that I want to take a look at. We will likely see an outbreak of thunderstorms and potentially severe ones in this pocket of central Queensland between Moranbah and Claremont down to Rockhampton and Billawheeler, just along this kind of area through here, extending out towards the coastline. Now, it's a little bit of a hot question as to whether or not they will be severe. It looks like there is going to be the chance of some severe thunderstorms with heavy rainfall and potentially large hailstones and damaging winds, but I mean, I think the Eastern Reef is just really overcalling some of these thunderstorms here. If I saw this on the convective forecast models, I'd be really concerned, and normally speaking, this is a severe thunderstorm outbreak every day, for me at least, from the Eastern Reef forecast model, but I think this is a case of the Eastern Reef, a very rare case rather, of the Eastern Reef kind of boogieing up the forecast right now. It doesn't look like it's doing a very good job with central Queensland, which makes it difficult because we've got a pretty big flip-flop on the convective forecast models of the rainfall across central Queensland. It looks like some isolated heavy falls are possible, especially into the northern reaches of the Sunshine Coast later on this afternoon at around 1 or 2 p.m. And when I say heavy falls, I'm talking probably up to about 50 millimetres coming through from some of these showers here along Fraser Island, and then up north of Harvey Bay up to about Bundaberg. And then it's going to be an interesting thing as to what these showers do. I mean, the Eastern Reef really calling for some showers to come through along the central Queensland coastline later on this afternoon and evening, but the convective forecast models just don't see it happening at all. I'm definitely going to err on the side of these showers happening, and rainfall accumulations between 20 and 40 millimetres are possible, considering that the showers are already beginning to pipe up here offshore from Agnes Water, Gladstone and Bundaberg, and you can see it here. That's going to be getting ashore pretty soon. Some of these showers are packing a punch in terms of the rainfall accumulations here, and considering they are slow moving with up to about 40 millimetres an hour embedded into them, certainly some rainfall that should be taken seriously up in the central areas of Queensland. Long story short though, in terms of the thunderstorm outbreak, there's nothing expected in terms of crazy severe thunderstorm outbreaks over the coming 3 or 4 days across the southeast of Queensland. It looks like a couple of storms possible both Friday and Saturday night over the scenic rim and out towards Toowoomba and Warwick, and then for the next couple of days nothing expected on the forecast, not at least until kind of mid-January at this point, until the next thunderstorm outbreak happens on the 11th of January at this point. And then for central Queensland as well, like a bit of a difficult forecast for the rainfall, just considering the uncertainty that the Eastern Reef forecast model has, which is a bit difficult, especially considering that we were expecting this to be a pretty easy forecast to make. Unfortunately, unfortunately it just hasn't panned out that way. Regardless, rainfall accumulations will be between sort of that 20 and 60 millimetre mark. I think the Eastern Beth might be a little bit bullish on some of the rainfall here, but outside of Yeppoon, 70 millimetres on the forecast. I still reckon Yeppoon will pick up at least 30 millimetres, but I think 70 at this time might be a little bit bullish. Agnes Water and Gladstone expecting somewhere between sort of the 10 and 20 millimetre mark. I don't really see either of those places getting more than about 25 or 30 millimetres of rainfall. Bundaberg has a shot of about 30 millimetres of rainfall, but again, nothing more than that. Harvey Bay, I'd expect about 50 millimetres over the next 3 days there, and same with a lot of locations along the Sunshine Coast, at least 50 millimetres coming through there, especially with the showers that have already begun to pipe up, as we've just talked about in the southeast of Queensland. I mean, this stuff here could drop 50 millimetres in an hour pretty much any day of the week, so we will keep a very close eye on the rainfall accumulations through here, and by no means is the rainfall expected to be heavy or intense across the southeast of Queensland over the next week. It's just going to be steady enough to kind of promote those higher rainfall accumulations that are certainly worth talking about in an update like this, because a lot of the rivers in this area are very close to the minor or even the moderate flooding alert, so any kind of significant rainfall over 50 millimetres will tip the tide in favour for some flooding across the southeast of Queensland. That's a very overcomplicated forecast for the next week across the southeast of Queensland. If I've left your head spinning, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. I'll get to the thunderstorm forecast to the southeast later on in the video, so stick around for that. I'll roll that into the New South Wales forecast because it is a bit more of a New South Wales event. Panning up to far north Queensland now, we do have a little bit of rainfall on the cards for the Cassowary Coast over the coming couple of days. Nothing really expected this afternoon and evening. A few thunderstorms expected here and there across the Cape York Peninsula. Same deal for tomorrow night, but they're going to have some steady showers by the looks of things streaming in ashore, especially tomorrow afternoon and evening. We'll see some of these showers come ashore for the Cassowary Coast locations between Townsville up to Cooktown. Looks like we could be having some isolated heavy falls along the Cassowary Coast, especially between Cairns and Cardwell, but between Townsville and Cooktown looks like there is going to be a little bit of rain on the cards, and just in general for the Queensland coastline looks like plenty of showers streaming ashore there. Saturday we're going to see some heavier falls by the looks of things, especially into Saturday night into early Sunday morning, and by heavy falls I mean we're just going to be seeing those heavier showers come ashore here, so the falls aren't going to be intense over a widespread swathe of locations. It will just be isolated moderate to heavy falls for some isolated locations along the coastline. Same deal with Sunday as well, some showers streaming in ashore there, rainfall continuing through Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday as well, and in fact the rainfall doesn't really stop until about Thursday or Friday, and then a couple of days of dry weather kicks in there. On the forecast, at least the long range forecast, it doesn't look like too much in the way of rainfall is expected, and just in general for the next week or so, it's not like we're expecting crazy rainfall to occur across the far north of Queensland, but we will likely see triple figure rainfall accumulations over a wide swathe of the Cassowary Coast and even up and towards the Daintree rainforest as well over the next 7 days. Again, nothing out of the ordinary for this time of year, but certainly considering the river levels up there, it's worth talking about, and especially considering the rainfall accumulations up here can blow out dramatically. We definitely do need to be talking about stuff like that. So sometimes when you see 70 or 80 millimetres on the forecast, especially around Innisfail and Tully, you could get away with tripling those numbers and still having an accurate rainfall forecast. I don't really see 200 millimetres coming through in the next week or so. I think that might be a little bit of an extreme number, but you get the idea that there is certainly going to be triple figure rainfall accumulations coming through. Nothing to be concerned about, but certainly worth giving the heads up about. Unfortunately, this rainfall is going to be isolated to the coastline and the mountains adjacent to the coastline, so out to the Atherton Tablelands, Atherton, Mareeba, Ravenshoe, not expecting anything really significant in terms of rainfall, and even Cairns as well, looks like for the most part they're going to miss out on significant falls as well, only a couple of drops of rainfall there. However, this is in stark contrast to the GFS forecast model, which for the GFS, this is a boatload of rainfall to be calling for. 120 millimetres could sometimes be 400 millimetres on another forecast model. Now, of course, I'm not saying that 400 millimetres is expected to come through for the far north of Queensland, but the GFS is expecting heavier showers and quite a lot more of them, especially this weekend and into early next week. You can see rainfall accumulations, although they're nothing grand on this forecast here, the GFS forecast model is still calling for some of that heavier stuff that will pretty quickly amount into significant rainfall accumulations by the looks of things on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, especially for the Daintree rainforest as well. Some significant falls possible up there as per the GFS forecast model. So certainly an interesting aspect of the forecast, and certainly something we will keep a very close eye on here at Cyclones Oz. The GFS forecast model tends to be kind of the underestimator of both the major forecast models between the Eastern Beth and the GFS, and same deal with the Axis G3, calling for similar rainfall accumulations to the GFS. So I reckon that the numbers for the Eastern Beth model could probably be getting away with a solid doubling, that's for sure. I reckon much more accurate rainfall accumulations over the next week will be somewhere between the 150 and 250 millimetre mark, and even these forecasts might be a little bit underestimated as well. I think Innisfail will get away with about 200 millimetres of rainfall coming through from showers on on Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. It's pretty similar for Tully as well, but however my forecast still stands with this rainfall being at coastal exclusive and locations such as Cairns, Atherton, Mareeba, Ravenshoe and some of the more inland communities into the Atherton tablelands. Very unlikely to pick up significant rainfall accumulations at this time. We'll take a look at this in a future forecast update. If you've got any questions or comments regarding them, please do let me know in the comment section down below. In terms of the rainfall for central Queensland, nothing really on the forecast for the next week in terms of significant stuff for locations between Townsville down to about Ogmore. The central Queensland rainfall, or at least the bulk of the stuff coming through for locations between Ogmore down to Bundaberg, it's kind of a bit hit and miss in terms of what showers are expected throughout the course of the next couple of days. But it looks like later on in the forecast period they might see a couple of showers, maybe Monday or Tuesday. Again, nothing crazy there. Certainly nothing worth talking about and nothing worth airtime by the looks of things. But yeah, that basically does it for Queensland, at least for right now. I do want to touch on the severe thunderstorm outbreaks expected across New South Wales and the southeastern corners of Queensland. I'm going to try and roll this into one part of the video, just considering it's going to be affecting very similar locations. So throughout the course of today, we are expecting a couple of thunderstorms to fire up, mostly pulse thunderstorms, but a couple of them could go severe around the Moree and Narrabri area later on this afternoon and evening. And nothing crazy is expected, but there is going to be plenty of instability in the atmosphere, and as such, these thunderstorms could make the most of it and really blow up into something quite substantial later on this afternoon and evening. And you can already see some of the convection starting to blow up in these areas here already. Plenty of speckly cloud along the northeastern corners of New South Wales. Doesn't look like the satellite imagery on this frame is going to load in here, but you can see there is going to be a bit of that cloud really beginning to fire up pretty shortly by the looks of things. These thunderstorms here, like I said, nothing crazy is expected, but a couple of good ones are possible. And you can see it here on the convective forecast models as well. Later on this afternoon and evening, we are expecting a couple of spots of pretty decent rainfall, especially along the border around Goondiwindi and around St George and Thallon, and then a couple of isolated good pulse thunderstorms expected outside of the Barrington Tops, outside of Kempsey and Taree, and then around Tamworth and Armidale as well. Unfortunately for Glen Innes, doesn't look like any rainfall is going to be coming through there, or any meaningful rainfall at this time. It looks like the storms are going to keep themselves out of the mountainous areas and more into sort of the northern rivers area, into some of the more northern plains areas. I think the northern rivers side, especially into the extreme northeastern corner of New South Wales, it looks like it is for the most part going to completely miss out on the rainfall here. Pushing this forecast forward through Friday, nothing expected. There will be a couple of showers and storms here and there streaming in from the coast around the northeastern corners of New South Wales. Convective forecast models are favouring some heavier falls by the looks of things tomorrow afternoon and evening. In fact, some pretty heavy falls expected around Coffs Harbour and Grafton from potentially isolated severe thunderstorms and showers moving ashore here. But again, I don't really see more than 60 millimetres coming through, so it'd be a bit of a stretch to call this a severe weather outbreak or a severe thunderstorm outbreak. Still some good rainfall expected nonetheless, and certainly something to get excited for, especially if you are expecting it or really in desperate need of a good shower, because it looks like around Grafton and Coffs Harbour a couple of good showers are possible. Saturday and Sunday, nothing really expected into the northern rivers or the northeast of New South Wales rather, and you can see as we push this forecast through, the next thunderstorm outbreak for the northern rivers areas about Wednesday afternoon. You can see some good thunderstorms expected there, but we're really looking quite long range out now into the forecast, and again this could change quite dramatically over the coming couple of days. The other forecast models though in quite favour of a very nice severe thunderstorm outbreak beginning on kind of Tuesday night and then continuing through Wednesday and through Thursday as well. So it looks like we might have a couple of days of severe thunderstorms, or at least severe weather across the northeast of New South Wales and into the southeast of Queensland. Certainly a very stormy phase that we're going to be heading into probably around the 7th or the 8th of January by the looks of things, and certainly something that's going to get a lot of coverage on the Cyclones Oz channel. So if that's something that takes your fancy, then make sure you are subscribed. We will take a look at that in great detail in a future forecast update, probably on Saturday, when I can get you the exact details on what's expected rainfall and storm wise. Right now the details just seem a little bit too murky, and there's a lot of flip-flopping between forecast models at this time. That does it for the northeast of New South Wales. Certainly some warm temperatures if you're paying very close attention to the northwestern corners of the state. So some warm temperatures expected, which means we're going to have a low pressure system and a deep low pressure system developed by the looks of things across New South Wales earlier on next week, and that's going to give way to a very nice severe thunderstorm outbreak across parts of the southwest of the state. Severe thunderstorms expected to dot areas between Bathurst right down to the border between New South Wales and Victoria by the looks of things from Saturday onwards. The thunderstorms will be pretty widespread, and it doesn't look like there's going to be too much in the way of severe stuff. That if there is, they're going to be very few and far between. Sunday will be a little bit more intense. A couple of good thunderstorms expected around the Mudgee, Orange and Lithgow area, just in this general pocket here outside of or just towards the northwest of Sydney, and a couple of decent thunderstorms also possible around the Canberra area as well. Plenty of instability in the atmosphere actually on Sunday night especially, and as such that's going to give way to what could be a pretty good round of what could be some pretty unexpected and underestimated thunderstorms. So certainly something we're going to need to keep a very close eye on this weekend. I'll give detailed forecast updates on the day of these thunderstorms and when they're expected to outbreak outbreak. Monday, thunderstorms expected in pretty much the exact same area in the southeastern corner of New South Wales, extending in towards Victoria, as well as a low pressure front moves through parts of Victoria. So warm temperatures expected on Sunday. You can see temperatures going up to about 37 in Melbourne before that cool change comes in. And as with pretty much every cool change, a line of thunderstorms expected to spark up along the hot side of it, and that will definitely carry in towards New South Wales as well, with good thunderstorms expected to outbreak across Monday night and then in towards Tuesday night as well. Thunderstorms expected into the northeast of the state as that cool change sweeps through, but certainly some warm temperatures expected later on this weekend and into very early next week. Then those thunderstorms die off from Tuesday afternoon, while they move into the northeast of the state by Monday afternoon, and then die off pretty much completely by Tuesday afternoon. And then it's going to be another couple of days, and we'll see that proper severe thunderstorm outbreak by the looks of things later on next week. This is quite interesting. I mean, I can't really make sense of the forecast right now, and it certainly can't give an accurate expectation of what is expected, but the forecast, especially from the Eastern Blue F beyond about Wednesday or Thursday, the 8th or 9th of January respectively, becomes really uncertain. It looks like we might see a low pressure system develop offshore from the New South Wales coastline. In fact, that does look actually pretty likely considering all the other forecast models are suggesting at this time. Whether that plays a role in really shaping the weather for New South Wales, or a significant role in shaping the weather for New South Wales and Victoria, still time will only tell that, and we'll have to look at a couple more forecast runs to see what's expected there. So I'm not making any comment on an east coast low or a tropical low in the South Pacific Ocean, just considering the fact that there is so much uncertainty with it. But what the Eastern Blue has thrown our way, and this is quite an interesting aspect on the forecast, is a deep low pressure system developing over New South Wales next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 11th and 12th of January. And this will not only drive those temperatures absolutely through the roof for parts of New South Wales. I mean, you can see Wannerong and White Cliffs expecting tops of 45 and 46 degrees respectively next Saturday. But I mean, just take a look at the rainfall, the stagnant rainfall that's expected over Victoria. Now, the standout feature of this low pressure system that makes me pretty much convinced right now, or 99% convinced, that it's not going to happen, and it's certainly not going to happen in a way that the forecast models are expecting here, is just a central pressure at 988 millibars over Bendigo. I mean, that's not unheard of, but that is very, very intense indeed. And if it wasn't uncertain enough, just take a look at the rainfall accumulations for next weekend alone. 250 millimeters expected over just 2 days. I mean, that rainfall is almost unheard of for this part of Victoria. That stuff does not happen, and very much does not happen in the way that the forecast models are suggesting. What the takeaway of this is that a low pressure system is possible to develop somewhere around New South Wales or Victoria and really up the rainfall and the storminess of those states, probably late next week or into early next weekend or next fortnight, somewhere between the 10th and the 15th of January, which means that we are going to be heading into a stormier state, especially across the eastern parts of the nation for the next couple of weeks. That's typical for this time of the year, but I reckon that the Eastern Blue is kind of throwing us a sackload of boogies at this time, especially considering if you contrast this to other forecast models, either very little or squat in the way of rainfall is expected. Again, we will take a look at this in a future forecast update, but this time I would take the Victoria and New South Wales forecast beyond about Tuesday with a very heavy pinch of salt. And if you've got any questions or comments about it, then please do let me know in the comment section down below as well. Same goes for Tasmania and South Australia, so much uncertainty with it. We'll neglect the tropics for today, at least for Western Australia and the Northern Territory. I mean, if you take a look at the rainfall accumulations, nothing expected in the way of significant stuff is expected over the next 14 days. There is going to be steady rainfall coming through, but it's just from evening thunderstorms, and there's no point in spending extra time on that, especially considering they're built for it up there and they know exactly what is going to be coming through over the next 14 days. Into the southwest of Western Australia, we've had a couple of days of really warm temperatures. Perth actually got to, well, my weather station got to 43 degrees yesterday, and it is an awfully muggy morning, that's for sure. It's 24, I think, right now. Yeah, 24 degrees outside, and the humidity is sitting at about 75%, so it's feeling very tropical indeed. It's feeling exactly like Brisbane would. The temperatures today shouldn't be too extreme around the Perth metro area, getting up to a top of about 32 by the looks of things. A humid one at that of 32 degrees. It looks like humidity values are going to be sitting at around 40 to 50% around the Perth metro area. Not pleasant at all. In fact, yeah, 32 degrees and 50% humidity. That is quite warm and quite sticky indeed. Thankfully, a little bit dry as you get further inland into the wheat belt. Still going to be relatively humid for the temperatures. 38 degrees expected for Ravensthorpe by the looks of things. In fact, up to about 40 degrees for Lake Grace, Marvel Lock, Newdigate, all expecting tops into the 40s. And the humidity values there also sitting at around 15 to 20%. In fact, for Lake Grace, around that 20% mark at 40 degrees. Now, that is quite high, and I know I'm really kind of cherry-picking the data here to talk about. But for Lake Grace, I mean, when you're talking about a 40-degree day just in Western Australia in general, you're talking about humidity values hovering between sort of that 5 and 15%. So it will actually feel a little bit sticky out into the wheat belt throughout the course of today. Very much a lot of dry air streaming out offshore as well. I mean, you can see Esperance low humidity values for their coastal location, and that's going to drive those temperatures up through the roof. So very warm temperatures expected today. These warm temperatures will extend in towards the more eastern parts of Western Australia and then in towards South Australia throughout Friday and then into Saturday as well. Those temperatures then start to build across interior parts of Australia, South Australia and the Northern Territory, and then those temperatures get reserved for New South Wales by the looks of things as we get towards Monday or Tuesday. And unfortunately, beyond about Wednesday, it's very difficult to give an accurate temperature forecast, but I can say for certain that across interior parts of Australia, depending on what heat comes through here, it looks like those temperatures are going to shoot up by the looks of things towards the end of next week. And just having a look at how the forecast is playing through, this has been a bit of a trend over the last couple of days. So yeah, some very warm temperatures expected across interior parts of Australia. That's enough talk about the heat. It's now time to talk about the tropics. We still have Tropical Low 08U, which is kicking and screaming for help by the looks of things. It's really struggling with wind shear now, about 2,000 kilometres towards the west-northwest of Karratha and about 2,200 to the west-northwest of Port Hedland. No threat to land, of course. It's not a threat to Western Australia, not even in terms of rainfall or even having an impact on the WA weather. It's now a dying system as well by the looks of things. I mean, wind observations really quite scattered across parts of the Indian Ocean, and they're not windy enough to call this a gale force system either. It's really struggling, and it looks like it is going to die off sometime over the next couple of days. In fact, it looks like it's pretty much going to be perished by the weekend, or by the time the weekend rolls around. However, later on to the forecast period, we're likely to see Tropical Low 09U spin up offshore from Western Australia here, again south of Bali by the looks of things actually, and this system wastes no time in spinning itself up into a powerful tropical low. Unfortunately, it looks like wind shear is also going to get the best of this system here, and although it makes a decent run of getting towards tropical cyclone status by Wednesday or Thursday, in fact the Bureau of Meteorology now giving it a 25% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone, I still reckon, just considering the uncertain nature and the fact that this is a new addition to the forecast, that might be a little bit of a bullish number at this time, but I'm happy to sit with 20 or 25% for the time being, and certainly those chances can be upped if need be. Still though, absolutely no threat to land by the looks of things for Western Australia. It really does give it a shot of getting to cyclone status, but it looks like wind shear will, like I said, get the best of this system by around Saturday or Sunday, and then pushing the forecast forward even further, it looks like this system really kind of struggles and dies off pretty quickly. Later on into the forecast period, we do have another tropical low expected to spin up offshore from Western Australia. The Madden-Julian Oscillation is going to promote tropical activity between sort of the 7th of January right out to about the 21st of January, just for that 2-week period. And the GFS has been calling for some monster systems slamming into the WA coastline. In fact, yesterday I saw an awful Facebook post over in the, I think it was the southeast Queensland weather alerts, but it was calling for this monster tropical cyclone, and it was one of the bogus GFS runs calling for that system to slam in towards Karratha, and it was from a guy that's got a reputation in weather tracking as well. I'm not going to name and shame, but this guy's been tracking forecasts. I've messaged him privately before. He's been tracking the models for about 5 years now, so he knows what he's talking about, and he knows these trends here. I don't want to get on my high horse and call what's good and what's bad for the forecasting community, but please, if you see something on Facebook that's calling for a massive tropical cyclone to slam into Australia's coastline 14 or 16 days out into the future, and it's from the GFS forecast, it's 99.9% certain to be a boogie run. The GFS does it all the time. It's a fluke in the forecast. It's just an error, and it's why I don't really use the GFS for tropical cyclone forecasts, because it's not a good model. It's really good for long-term trends and seeing what's expected in the long-term forecast, especially in terms of rainfall and patterns in terms of rainfall, but it's terrible for tropical cyclones. So just beware when you are on Facebook. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today, so thank you so much for watching this video to this point. If you have enjoyed it, then please leave a like on it as well, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that is all from me today, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.